20 chimpanzees who've been bottled up inside a medical research lab for years have been given a reprieve and a new home.
These are the so-called space chimps, early participants in the U.S. space program that were later handed over to medical labs for brutal experimentation.
For years now, George Knapp of the Channel 8 I-Team has been following the story of the space chimps and the people who've helped some of them survive. He is here now with, we got a happy ending, George?
Well, yes and no. A happy ending for those chimps which were rescued from the lab, not so happy for those that remain behind. Scientists tell us that chimpanzees are humanity's closest relative with 98% of human DNA. They have language skills, emotions, and the intelligence of human children. But for years, they've been treated in a most inhumane way. Now, at least some have a second chance. Slowly, cautiously, a few battle-scarred chimpanzees wander out onto a 3-acre island compound that will be home for the rest of their lives. Some of these chimps have never felt grass under their feet, having spent their entire lives in cold metal cages. The story of how they came to Central Florida from the wilds of tropical Africa is part triumph, but mostly tragedy. Valued precisely because they're so much like us, 65 infant chimps were ripped from the arms of their mothers for induction into the U.S. space program. A few were shot into space, paving the way for human astronauts. The astronauts got ticker tape parades. The chimps were rewarded by being shipped off to medical research labs, including the infamous Colston Foundation at Holloman Air Force Base, New Mexico, where 144 space chimps and their offspring were subjected to horrendous experiments. They were used as crash test dummies, were dissected while alive, were injected with HIV, hepatitis, and other deadly diseases, were sprayed with insecticides, carcinogens, and poisons. Worst of all, these intelligent social animals were kept isolated in cages. Behind the steel door of a laboratory cage, baby chimps cry out for nurturing. Chimps kept in isolation have been known to go insane. At the Colston Foundation, many went through worse. In the 90s, 3 major investigations by the USDA found numerous animal welfare violations by Colston. Those probes caught the attention of Nevadans, including ex-Las Vegan Carrie Bagnall, who ran her own primate sanctuary, and Senator Harry Reid, who enlisted former astronaut and fellow Senator John Glenn to go to bat for the space chimps and to keep the heat on Colston.
These animals have been cooked to death. They've died of thirst, dehydration, bled to death. This isn't even in research. This is neglect.
As an example, 3 monkeys were cooked to death. They were in a little room. Temperatures got 140, 150 degrees. They were actually cooked to death, alive. And I think that's not nitpicking. And I think if anybody suggests that they're being well taken care of, they're mistaken.
The attitude of the U.S. Air Force is that the space chimps were, quote, surplus, like unwanted pieces of furniture. Even with scrutiny from Harry Reid and primate groups, the Pentagon decided to award permanent custody of the space chimps not to animal sanctuaries that wanted to save them, but to the Colston Foundation for more medical experiments, a death sentence in the eyes of many. Primatologist Jane Goodall and Carol Noon fought back in federal court. In the meantime, they raised $2 million to buy 150 acres in Central Florida, a hoped-for sanctuary for the space chimps. In 1999, a partial victory. The sanctuary was awarded 21 of the space chimps, and Colston was ordered to divest itself of half of its primates. The fact that they got out of Colston's place alive is pretty amazing.
That's pretty amazing, and that they are doing well.
Las Vegan Valerie Buchanan first worked with Sanctuary Director Carol Noon when both were in Zambia studying wild chimps. She keeps close tabs on the progress of the space chimps in their new home.
The excitement of something new and feeling it, touching it, running, and just so natural, because it is natural. And that's what's amazing about them, is that after living so many years in captivity, it's like living in solitary confinement for us, and then all of a sudden opening the door.
Of the 21 chimps awarded to the Center for Captive Chimpanzees, 1 has since died. That particular chimp had been subjected to repeated liver biopsies while in the lab, and his body simply gave out. It took many months to get the others acclimated to living together, but they now have formed what amounts to a single family unit, all 20 of them literally living as one big happy family. Tonight at 11, some of the special challenges still facing the sanctuary, including the possibility of hidden diseases that might have been injected into the chimps. If you'd like more information on chimps or this sanctuary, you can check out the links on our webpage, KLASTV.com.
Some good news there. Is the Colston Foundation still doing research with chimps?
Yes, they are. At one time, Colston had about 600 chimps, which represents more than half of all the lab chimps in the country. They were ordered by the USDA, though, to divest themselves of about half of those, 300 of them, and some severe restrictions were placed on how the remaining animals could be treated. But yes, experimentation continues, even though many scientists dispute whether the value of that kind of research at all. Anyway, more to 11.
Thanks, George.